Hey.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
He did what?
Jackpot, baby!
Ice up, son. Ice up.
That is blasphemous.
You can put it on the board. Yes.
So, the Ravens, and I apologize because we do have a special guest, but this segment is going to be a little bit of a rant segment. And yes, the Ravens, they lost. Yes, they had a big lead. Am I upset? Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, it is a familiar sight as well, though. I'm upset, but it is not, I'm not necessarily surprised, I guess you could say, because this goes back a few years. And Zach, we talked about this. And the way that people on Twitter have said it was an organizational failure. And after the game, the media asked John Hardball, what's the deal, basically? And he said, well, it was, how do you feel about the last 7 home games or whatever? You lost the last 7 home games. And he goes, well, 5 of those came last year. And, that was last year. We had injuries, and that was a different team. Sure, that was a different team, but you lost the game for the same reason. You lost all those games for the same reason. You didn't take the points when you could have, and you lost the game because of that, because of your decision. And we could go all the way back to the year where the Ravens went 14-2. Best season in franchise history. Number 1 seed in the playoffs. All eyes were on them to make the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson at quarterback, a guy that was so mobile that people make jokes about him being a running back. And what do? They draw up a game plan to have him throw the ball 50 times. Unbelievable. They lose in the divisional round, don't even make it to the AFC Championship game. Last season, a different team, as Hardball may have said. All the injuries and all that, we can talk about that all day. They tried to win the game in Pittsburgh on a 2-point conversion. It didn't work. What do? Next week against the Packers, they could win the game with a 2-point conversion or kick the extra point and tie the game. What do? They didn't learn from their mistake from the previous week, and they went for the 2-point conversion. What do? They didn't get it.
If I recall, it was almost the same play as well.
Oh, yeah.
It was, I think both were to Mark Andrews, if I remember correctly. And they were, the 1 2-point conversion was to Mark Andrews. It was just a dumb pass. And if I remember correctly, the other one was once again trying to get the ball to Mark Andrews on a 4th down. Obviously, didn't work out.
Yeah. So same thing. Maybe you learn from your mistake and say, hey, maybe we'll do something a little different next time.
Most would.
But we didn't. And last year, we also probably went for it on 4th down more than any other team in the league. And, I think we got a pretty good percentage on that. But in a close game, there's a difference between going for it on 4th down in a tie game with less than a minute left, where either you're going to score and take the lead, or you're going to give the ball to the other team and you're going to lose. And there's a difference between that and going for it on 4th down when you're up by 20 against the Jets or something. Bringing us to this year. The Miami game, up 28-7. Defense lets up a little bit, offense plays conservative and cute, and I hated that. If you ask me, I say pedal to the metal. Foot, meet, floor, aggressiveness is key. We lose the game 42-38. 2 weeks later, we say, okay, Josh Allen's coming to town. This is a big game. We get up 20-3. We absolutely dominate Josh Allen and the Bills in the first half. We get the ball towards the end of the first half. We're up 20-3 still. You think to yourself, you score here and you get the ball to start the second half. This is amazing. We could really open this thing up. We don't take advantage of that. Bills get the ball back. They score, making it a closer game at halftime. Second half, we couldn't score the entire second half. They make their way back, and all of a sudden, this is 2 weeks again all over again against the Dolphins, where the Bills came out, did whatever they wanted to in the second half, and the Ravens looked out of touch. With the game at 20 apiece, Ravens still had a chance to save themselves. On 4th and goal from the 2-yard line, instead of kicking the field goal, they decided to go for it. And, all right, 2 yards. Maybe you can get it. You have your running backs are back. They're healthy. J.K. Dobbins is healthy. Justice Hill was doing pretty good. I think he did get injured in that game, though. And not to mention you have Lamar Jackson as well. He's a pretty good football player, right?
He's average. He's all right.
He's pretty mobile. And what do? They draw up none other than a pass play. I don't get it. 2 yards and you throw the ball. I mean, I was getting flashback. Now I know what Seahawk fans feel like on that Super Bowl when they had Marshawn Lynch and they threw the ball. How do you pass the ball? Or how do you drop a throwing play when you just have to get 2 yards to get a touchdown.
Well, when you're Greg Roman, that's what you do. Make bad decisions and don't use the key players you have. You have so many skill players on that team, and they're not used to the best of their ability. And on top of that, if you're going to do a pass play, make it a short pass to Mark Andrews. He's a big guy, most likely going to catch the ball, and you only need 2 yards out of it. And they were going for a big play that it makes no sense. As you said, you have some of the best running. You have one of the best running back rooms, I would say, including Lamar Jackson in that. And you're not using that on a 2-yard play. You also have the best kicker in the league, possibly of all time, and you're not going for a field goal when it's almost basically an easy get. It's guaranteed.
And I get it was raining, but it wasn't like that was going to be a 50-yard field goal. That was going to be shorter than an extra point.
Yeah.
Take the points.
Yep.
And I don't get it. And like I said, it's an all too familiar sight for all Ravens fans, I think. And as you said, not to mention, you have the most accurate kicker in NFL history. Why
not use him?
Why not use him? And as my dad said, he was livid, rightfully so.
For good reason.
And he said to me after the game, he goes, you know what good teams do? They go to the locker room and they make adjustments, even if you're winning. What do the bad teams do? They either go to the locker room and they're content with the lead, or if they're losing, they don't make any adjustments at all and just hope that they can come back magically.
They got a lead in the first half, and they decided to change that, like you said, get cute, get kind of soft for what they were doing there, and they lost that lead. What you did in the first half worked. Why change it? Now, of course, that defense is going to come out. They're going to scheme, and they're going to know what to play for. But if you're the Bills, you're coming out, you want to win this. Your defense has a new idea of what they're going to do. They know what they're looking for. If you're Ravens, you're going to continue to punch that through. It worked. It's going to continue to work in some aspect, and you add a few more things into it. But you don't come back out with a whole different game plan. That's not going to get you anywhere. You're going to end up doing exactly what they did and not get down the field and completely just get rid of the game.
And even if you are winning, you keep the pedal to the metal. And as you mentioned, the other team's going to go in and make adjustments. So you have to adjust to those adjustments. And the Ravens did anything but that. I mean, I don't even understand what the game plan was, because had they done what they did in the second half offensively, they probably would have gotten shut out the entire game, because it was just I don't even know what to say anymore.
And the defense as well, though. The defense just looked overwhelmed, and there's only so much you can do. They held them to 3 points for a majority of the first half. I mean, they were playing a great game. After a while, you get tired. There's only so much a defense can do. And the best defenses in the league, it's rare they ever hold a team to no points. But ignoring that side of it, I think the defense got tired, and they eventually started to let up some points, and the offense just couldn't get them out of that ditch, and that was it. They wasted away the game slowly but surely.
And yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you just I don't even know what to say other than it was a disappointing game. And you look at the Ravens defense in the Bills loss compared to the Dolphins loss. I think the Bills game was a little bit better defensively. They definitely, in the last drive, they did let the Bills somewhat march down the field, but not as much as the absolutely disappointment of a game against the Dolphins in the second half.
Miami had their way with the Ravens secondary in that. I mean, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle each had career games, and I mean, well, maybe not quite for Hill, but Waddle had a career game, and Hill was close by. I mean, they both had fantastic numbers that game. There's not a single thing that secondary could do. The defense as a whole got absolutely manhandled in that Miami game.
And I don't know about you, but I think we're pretty lucky that both of those games I was not at the apartment to watch the game.
We would not have a trash can, a TV,
yeah,
any video game consoles, remotes, you name it.
Because the Dolphins last season were not very good. The Ravens were. This was before Jackson got hurt, of course.
Yeah. Still no running room though.
No, the running backs were done. Yeah. And the defense was having some issues as well.
Yeah.
And the Ravens went out and probably played one of the worst games up until this season. One of the worst games I think I'd ever seen. And there may have been some broken things.
Well, this was also early in the season before the Dolphins had their win streak, because they went on and won.
That game started the win streak.
Was that what started it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because before that they were one of the more bottom teams in the NFL at the time.
Yeah, I mean, so that game was very upsetting for me, and I think.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. I think if I was at the apartment for the Bills and Dolphins game this year, yeah, it would not be pretty. It would not be pretty.
We wouldn't be watching many more games together. I think.
No, absolutely not.
Near the end of that one.
Yeah, I probably would be finding a new place to watch the game because I probably would have to be like put in one of those little padded cells, you know, they have.
We can put you in one of the
sponge rooms.
Yeah, that works too. I was gonna say what are they called where you put your hands behind your back and they're all or actually maybe in the front but they're crossed up on your chest.
You're talking about like a straight jacket?
Straight jacket, that's the word.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe put you in one of those and we can tie you to the couch and you can just sit there. We might have to put something around your mouth so there's not as many obscenities going around, but
I don't know. I feel like that might be torture. I think you should just put me in a closed room without any game on.
Maybe the sponge room would be a good fit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I think all of us are lucky, Steven included, and Liam and all the roommates. Like,
yes.
Everybody's lucky that I wasn't there. But I have to go back to the fact that the Ravens, in both of their losses this season, not only had big leads, but again, they did not make any adjustments. As my dad said, good teams make adjustments at halftime, whether you're winning or not. The Ravens, we go into the locker room at halftime and expect to be able to do the same exact thing in half two and expect it to be easy for us. Newsflash, people, that's not how the NFL works. Did you watch any NFL game in the entire NFL history? We can even go to this season for other teams. The Eagles had a commanding lead against the Lions in Week 1, and the Lions came storming back. And the Lions have done that against pretty much every team they've played this year where, even if they were behind, they come back and they make it close. The Chargers had a commanding lead over the Texans this week, and the Texans came back and I think got it within 3 at one point. This is not just a Ravens, or this is not just a Bills-Dolphins thing where, they came back against the Ravens. And sure, the Ravens were terrible in those second halves of the games, but this is not, this is nothing new. This is not, oh my goodness, they came back and tied the game up and made a comeback win. This happens all the time in the NFL. But when it happens twice in 3 weeks for the same reason, and not just twice in 3 weeks, but when it happens more than 5 times in 2 years for the same reasons, you start to ask some questions. And you could talk about Greg Roman. I'm not a big fan of him. I think I've made that very clear throughout radio shows and conversations and all that. But this also falls back on Hardball. Because as the head coach, and I told you this last night, as the head coach, there are 2 big qualities that, are the most important when you are looked at as, are you a good head coach or not? One of them being play calling ability or play calling knowledge. Not every head coach calls the plays, I understand that. And then the other one is leadership. Late in the game, in that situation, you have to have the ability to step up and say, hey, we're about to do this. This is not a good idea. We need to do this instead. Whether it's Greg Roman calling plays and Harbaugh needs to step up and say, that's the dumb play, we're not going to do that. Or whether it is just having some pride and having some sort of reality check to where, and we've made jokes, my dad and I, about, college coaches or whatever. Harbaugh needs a common sense coach. Where just one guy that's just a common sense guy, and Harbaugh's like, yeah, let's go for 2, and this guy comes in, kind of like those dad commercials for Progressive. No, let's not go for 2. No. Let's take the points. Just do that. Kind of calm him down a little bit and give him a reality check because, these are like Nathaniel Hackett type of decisions that are blowing games, and it's getting kind of old.
Well, I think there's a difference between having that aggressiveness and stupidity, and he's really riding that line pretty fine. I think there's certain points where, as you mentioned earlier, if you're up by 20 points over the Jets, go for it on 4th down. They're not going to catch back up. Most likely they're not going to. And if your defense is playing well, that's fine. But if you're playing a Bills team where they very easily, especially that second half, have gone down and absolutely manhandled you that entire second half, there's no reason you need to be going for it. Take the guaranteed points and go, because otherwise you're risking losing the game, which is exactly what happened. I think in that way, he needs to, I agree with, he needs to have a common sense coach where somebody's going to say, listen, that doesn't make sense. Now, I will say there's a chance it's Lamar where he's saying, I want to stay out on the field. I want to go for it, and Hardball's letting him. But there also has to lie back on the coach, where he's the one making it's his team. He makes the decision. If Lamar wants to stay on the field, Hardball has to tell him yes or no. And if he doesn't want to do that, he wants to take the points, and he says no. You pull him off, you send your kicker out there, and you're good to go. But he's just not doing that. And I agree that he's lost them the games, and I think it almost solely goes on Hardball.
And yeah, it definitely goes on Hardball. And you could definitely make the argument, and I will agree with you on that argument, that Greg Roman is not the best offensive coordinator in the league. And just one last thing before we hit the break here. You can also look at the defense. And in prior years, I would be a little more irritable and a little more willing to say, you know, to put the game and put the loss solely on defense and defensive coordinator, and I look at all that coaching and all that stuff. But we have to remember that this is a new defensive coordinator for the Ravens. Are they new players? No. But there are some new players, as there will be for any team, but it is a new defensive coordinator, and I think, you know, we're still in the beginning stages of the season here.
Got to work out some kinks.
Exactly. Those things are going to happen. And now maybe you're not going to give up, you know, multi-possession leads 2 times in 3 weeks all the time. But these are the kinds of frustrating things that will happen when you have some new people in positions, I guess I'll say.
But see, they've shown the sparks.
Yeah.
I mean, they've had where they were winning 20-3, or they were up. I don't remember what the score was against Miami before they came back. But like, they're showing that the ability is there. And the play calling on defense is there, but they can't keep it. Whether the players are getting tired and they need more conditioning, or the play calling's getting stale and they're kind of keeping those same things is more so the question mark. But I would agree that I think it's a young team in the way that they haven't learned that playbook yet. It's all new for a lot of those guys, and there are some young players on there. There's some new guys that haven't been on the team. It's a lot of new things they're trying to learn, but it's still no excuse. It's still you're still NFL players. You should be able to learn, you know, how it all goes and build that culture a little bit more and the relationship with each player, and get out there and you know, keep the leads. It's looking like the Falcons when they're playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl. They're blowing it left and right. There's no excuses for it.
No, there's no excuses whatsoever.
I don't have to tell you that.
No, absolutely not.